It was meant to be an escape. A week alone in a cabin advertised as secluded serenity deep in the Vermont wilderness. The kind of place where the nearest neighbor was miles away, and cell service was a hopeful myth. I arrived late, the gravel road crunching under my tires, a sense of quiet anticipation settling over me. The key was in the lockbox, just as the rental instructions said. The cabin itself was charmingly rustic old wood, a stone fireplace, and an air of undisturbed history. After unpacking my minimal bags, I settled onto the worn sofa, enjoying the absolute quiet. It was a profound silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire I'd started and the distant hoot of an owl. Yet, as the night deepened, I began to notice subtle things. The first was a faint, almost imperceptible clicking sound, like a loose shutter or a branch tapping the window, but it seemed to move around the cabin. I'd check, find nothing, and return to my book, only for it to start again, a little closer this time. Then, I found a small, antique wooden doll, a sort of marionette, on a high shelf in the living room. It wasn't mentioned in the listing, nor did it seem to fit the decor. Its painted eyes felt strangely fixed on me. I dismissed it as quirky decor. The next morning, I went for a hike. The fresh air was invigorating, and I rationalized away my unease as city dweller paranoia. When I returned a few hours later, I noticed something immediately. The small wooden doll, which I distinctly remembered facing the fireplace, was now turned, its vacant stare directed squarely at the front door, directly at me as I walked in. My heart gave a jolt, but I told myself the vibration from me walking, or an old house shifting. I turned it back, firmly. That night, the clicking returned, more persistent. It wasn't a branch. It sounded like footsteps, light and rhythmic, pacing above me in the attic, or perhaps the space between the walls. I tried to ignore it, pulling the blankets tighter. Then, I heard a distinct whisper, barely audible, coming from the corner of the room where the doll sat. It sounded like my name, elongated, followed by a soft, dry chuckle. I froze, my blood turning to ice. I scrambled out of bed, grabbed my phone, and with the flashlight on, swept the beam across the room. Nothing. The doll was still on the shelf, facing the fireplace, just as I'd left it. I couldn't sleep. I left the lights on, huddled on the sofa until dawn. As soon as the sun rose, I packed my car and left. When I got home, there was an email from the rental agency, a generic follow-up. But at the bottom, a handwritten note had been scanned and attached, presumably from the owner. Hope you enjoyed your stay. The previous guest left something important for you. Did you find her? I'd booked a high-rise apartment in downtown Chicago for a short business trip. It was one of those smart homes, everything controlled by voice commands or a central panel. Very convenient, very futuristic. Or so I thought. Upon arrival, the self-check-in was smooth. The apartment was impeccably clean, minimalist, and offered a breathtaking view of the city lights. I settled in, enjoyed a quick dinner, and prepared for my meetings the next day. As I was getting ready for bed, the smart thermostat, which I hadn't touched, suddenly dropped the temperature by 10 degrees. A voice, synthesized and calm, announced, "Temperature adjusted for optimal sleep." I found it unsettling, but figured it was an automated presetting or a glitch. I manually turned it back up. The next evening, after a long day, I returned to the apartment. I was making tea when the smart TV in the living room suddenly flickered on, displaying a grainy, still image of the apartment's living room from a slightly different angle than where I was standing. The image was old, faded, and showed a woman I didn't recognize, sitting on the sofa, looking directly into the camera. Below it, a message scrolled across the screen. "She waits for you." My stomach dropped. I fumbled for the remote, but the screen went black before I could find it. I called the rental company, but their after-hours line only offered automated responses. I tried the owner directly, but his voicemail box was full. I spent the night in a state of high alert, jumping at every creak of the building. The next morning, I convinced myself it was a prank, or perhaps an old cached message from a previous tenant that had randomly reactivated. I tried to focus on my work. That night, after another exhausting day, I was lying in bed when I heard a faint, almost imperceptible whisper from the ventilation system, directly above my head. It sounded like a woman's voice, murmuring something I couldn't quite decipher, but the tone was undeniably distressed. It went on for what felt like an eternity, growing slightly louder, more insistent, before abruptly cutting off. Then, my phone, which was charging on the nightstand, buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Did you hear her? She's lonely." My heart hammered against my ribs. I snatched my phone, but before I could reply, the apartment's smart panel on the wall illuminated, and the same synthesized voice from the first night spoke. "The guest above is concerned you are not responding to her calls." There was no apartment above me. This was the top floor. My family and I booked a stunning beach house for a week-long summer vacation. It was right on the coast, nestled between a rocky cliff and a stretch of pristine, secluded sand. The listing photos had shown idyllic sunsets and endless ocean views. It was perfect. From the moment we arrived, the house had a peculiar stillness about it, a sort of quiet energy that didn't quite match the vibrant beach setting. The first few days were wonderful. We swam, built sandcastles, and enjoyed the quiet evenings. But then the small oddities began. My daughter, Lily, kept mentioning an old woman. "The lady in the white dress," she'd call her. Lily claimed she saw her walking on the beach every morning, always at the same spot, just at the edge of our property. We never saw anyone. I'd scan the beach, but it was always empty. We chalked it up to Lily's vivid imagination, a common trait for a 5-year-old. One evening, I was cooking dinner when I noticed the kitchen window, which I had definitely closed and locked earlier, was slightly ajar. A cool ocean breeze rustled the curtains. I closed it, feeling a prickle of unease. The next morning, a small, intricate seashell, unlike any we'd found on our walks, appeared on the kitchen counter. "The lady left it," Lily announced simply. That night, my husband woke me. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. I listened. The rhythmic crash of the waves was there, but beneath it, a faint, almost melodic humming, coming from somewhere outside, near the front of the house. It sounded like an old lullaby. We both got up and peered through the living room window, but saw nothing but the moonlit beach and the dark expanse of the ocean. The humming eventually faded. On our last full day, while packing, I discovered something tucked away in a drawer in the master bedroom nightstand. It was an old, faded photograph. It showed a family standing on the very beach outside the house, decades ago. In the foreground, a young woman in a white dress, holding a child's hand, smiled faintly. But what truly chilled me was the inscription on the back, in elegant, looping handwriting. Our beloved Clara, lost to the waves, summer of '72, always waiting for her family to return. Just as I read it, Lily appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. "Mommy," she whispered, "the lady in the white dress is standing on the beach. She's waving at us." I looked out the window. There, at the edge of the property, silhouetted against the setting sun, was a figure in a white dress, slowly raising an arm. Not waving goodbye, but beckoning.